Hi everyone, this is Justin Cotton, and I will be talking about Fernand Ledger, the city, and his work, The City. But before that, I would like to revisit work that we all know and have learned during the semester or last last couple lectures. Cubism, and we already know that Cubism was one of the most influential visual art styles that were introduced to the art world. And this introduction came from both the cooperation of Pablo Picasso and George Braque. Um, they both initially created this as a neglection of the inherent concepts that were already in the art world, which was basically the main idea of art was to copy or to capture the likeness of. So with this, we already knew as this art, which was neglecting the type of style that neglected nature, it already stood out on its own pedestal, you could say. This also involved the neglecting of the belief that artists should adopt a traditional view of art. Cubism casted away this kind of handicap of traditional perspective as a way to view the sides, the side back, excuse me, the side, both sides, and the back of a specific landscape or view, you could say, and transmitting this likeness, this vantage point, simultaneously into one view. It reduced and fractured everyday objects into geometrical forms within a shallow and relief-like space. In a way, you can almost imagine it as the way we see, or the way flies, like the eyes of a fly is depicted, where it can see its front, its left, and its right at the same time. Um, and this also had the intent to emphasize the two-dimensional surface that we call canvas. Usually, we see the canvas as a flat surface, but in art, we tend to create a likeness that jumps at someone, um, almost forming from a flat surface to a three-dimensional surface. I'll I'll be talking about Ledger, who is a French painter and sculptor, as well as a filmmaker and war veteran. He was born in Normandy. He was born in Normandy in the year 1881 and died on August 17th, 1955. During the early stages of his career, Ledger focused on Cubism. Eventually, he experimented with other art fields and slowly shifted his gaze from to contemporary styles of art. His take of Cubism with his take of Cubism was different, and it was contrasted. You could say it was contradicting, not contradicting. Um, it was similar, but at the same time different. You could say his take of Cubism had tubular and curvilinear abstractions, while Picasso and Prague preferred rectangular forms. Ledger was one of the first to experiment with non-figurative abstractions. Picasso and George Braque had an extremely significant impact on on his personal style as an artist. Although they had an impact on Ledger, it would be appropriate to think that he took the opposing fork in the road compared to both Picasso and Braque, going the same direction but at the same time deviating towards his own direction or his own style, as we say. Um, Ledger worked eventually and became increasingly Ledger's work eventually became increasingly abstract and started to limit his and he started to limit his color to the three primary colors we know as red, blue, and yellow. And then he also included black and white into his works. As his works became more prominent, they reflected his political interest in the working classes. However, it remained as a monumental style that is static in nature, with flat, unmodulated colors, heavy black contours, and continuing contrast between yeah, sorry, with cylinder-like and rectangular forms. To Ledger, it was important to capture a dynamic. It was important to him to capture a dynamic or action and constantly changing condition of modern life in his work. Almost similar to like a mirror, how it follows uh, the movement that you make in it. Depicting, by chance, depicting a three-dimensional form on two-dimensional surface without relying on the pictorial tools of perspective and chiaroscuro. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it is the effect of contrasting light and shadow created by light falling from a particular direction. In a way, it's like it is. If I can give a quick example, it is when you are in a room and the light is hitting that room a certain way to the point that light the light may be on you, illuminating you and whatever is in the view of the window, but anything that is outside of the view of that window is casted in shadow or darkness. It can be related to certain works like certain classical paintings like the Calling of Saint Matthew and David with the head of Goliath. Uh, back to Ledger's years as a cubist, he initially started with the concept of art as an autonomous activity. This like bring about memories when we first were talking about futurism. However, during his time as a soldier, he inevitably came in contact with all types of men and men who were all from different social classes and walks of life. It was because of these encounters that he was gifted a revelation. He stated, "I was abruptly thrusted into a reality which was both blinding and new." It, when hearing this, what comes to mind is you're experiencing something new where the reality of it is so blinding, so massive that to you it's incomprehensible. From there on, Ledger had the ambition to create an art that is accessible to all ranks in modern society, no matter what type of rank you are, no matter if you're rich, no matter if you're poor, no matter what type of artist you are, you were able to access this type of art style. And he saw the value in it, a poetic value that lies in the clear portrayal of everyday objects, where one may look at something and just be like, "Oh, that's just a cup," while he saw more of a artistic or poetic value that object that we pass every day has. And he also had a love for the unnoticed beauty of modern machinery that was becoming normal in the modern day. Looking at his works, you can tell that Ledger developed his fixation of modernization, and you can call it, in a way, a mechanical cycle. You can see the difference between him, Braque, and Picasso, how his works had more of a brightness to it, had more of a shine to it, compared to the dim, but at the same time light that Picasso and Braque added to theirs. He imitated, while you see him implementing the rectangular forms that Brock and Picasso had, while also putting his own spin to it and putting cylinder like, while also while also combining the cylinder and rectangular forms that we were discussing. After World War One, Ferdinand changed his approach from Cubism to popular to he changed his approach from Cubism to a popular modern art. He became focused on mechanical objects and the importance of advertising and the billboards these advertisements were posted on. He grew an obsession of cities and eventually moved to New York. As he laid his eyes upon the capital of the world, he stated, he was astounded and remarked to his friend, I am still constantly astonished by the vertical urge of these people drunk with architecture. From my room onto the 13th floor, the night is the most astonishing spectacle in the world. Nothing can be compared to it. The city is infernal, a mixture of elegance and toughness. And now we have arrived to the city. The city, the city at first didn't really, I didn't really know what to make of the city when I first laid eyes on it. Uh, at first, it really just looked like a whole mess to me. I didn't really know whether what he was trying to do, and humorly funny to make it even more funny, I didn't actually see the name when I first looked at it. When I did see the name, it made sense to me that that Ledger created this, that recreated or captured the same atmosphere of a busy city with the use of a cylinder and rectangular forms. He created a depth-filled view of an active city on a flat surface that tends to jump out the longer you examine it. With its bold and dark bright colors in this work, Ledger successfully recaptured, or yeah, captured the disconnecting rhythms of a contemporary urban space and the aspects of perspective its tall buildings, bridges, and scaffolds hold.